And welcome back to JBM Sports Media as we break down every NFL team and giving you our predictions into what they're going to do for the season. Uh, I'm a little excited for this episode because we're talking about the Giants, and I'm very excited about this. I'm very excited about the season going forward. I don't want to spill too much, so Ben, take it away. Let's talk about the New York Giants.
Yeah, here it is. Obviously, we're going to get into the additions that they had. We're going to talk a little bit about their draft, and we're going to conclude with how we do see this team playing out this year with their over-under win total and potential. Are we going to see a big-time jump, maybe a playoff jump? We'll talk about it right now, just a little preview. But let's look at their 2026 offseason additions, bringing in Isaiah Likely, tight end, but he's not the only guy coming from Baltimore. No, they have a new head coach there in John Harbaugh. So Harbaugh will be at the helm. No more Brian Dable era. That is gone. It is over with. But Likely is their new tight end one there. They have Tremon Edmonds, who I believe he was a Chicago Bear last time I checked. So he's a new linebacker there. No more Dexter Lawrence, though. He actually got traded for the 10th overall pick in this past year's draft. So Sexy Dexy is not going to be there no more. He's in Cincinnati. And they did have Greg Newsome, who I actually really wanted the Packers. Fun fact, I wanted the Packers to trade for this guy at last year's deadline. He's a very, very solid cornerback. I think he's a very solid cornerback. And they also got Ricard, who I do believe he was a Raven as well, I think, as a fullback. So you know what? They're bringing the Ravens 2.0 to New York. If you want to look at their draft real quick, if we want to get into that, getting Arvell Reese, which I do believe was such a steal at the number 5 overall pick. I think that was a steal, to be honest. And then they had Francis Mauigoa. Hopefully I didn't butcher that name, but I probably did because I'm a jobber when it comes to pronunciating names and everything like that. But he's an O-lineman for Miami. They needed O-line help as well, big time. Some other notable additions from the draft, Colton Hood. They want the Packers to draft this guy in the second round. He's coming from Tennessee, and Malachi Fields, wide receiver from Notre Dame. But if you want to quickly look back at these offseason additions in general, I'll throw it to JV, and then obviously Mike's going to talk about how he does feel about the Giants going into a new year and a new reign with Harbaugh at the reign, obviously.
Listen, I like the moves that the Giants made. I definitely think they're going to be a lot better in the NFC. And I really do think, now post Dable era, that it's going to be a really interesting ride now with Harbaugh there. It's been 20 years with one organization for Harbaugh, so it's definitely a change for him. Now he's in a different conference as well, so it's going to be interesting to see how he manages the staff. I loved Isaiah Likely. I thought that was a really nice option for Jackson Dart. I do think they needed some help at the tight end spot, and they got a guy that could, catch a lot of, a lot of balls in the red zone, and I think that's something that's going to be really, really beneficial to a guy like Jackson Dart. And like you said, they tried to shore up the defense by getting Greg Newsome. They got, Darius Washington. I thought that was a really nice addition there as well. And you know what? Obviously, this is going to sound crazy, but Jordan Stout, I think for the special teams game, you do need to shore up your special teams. I think it's such a really big piece of how teams are. I think the special teams really shows character, and I do like that. It reunites him with John Harbaugh, and Tremont Edwards, Edmonds, like I said, was another great pickup at the linebacker spot, signing a 3-year deal, getting more than $23.5 million guaranteed. So they showed up the defense that was really good, and obviously, if you want to go the offensive side, they were able to get Odell Beckham back. I thought that was a really smart move in the sense that I do think he's older now and a little bit more mature, so he could maybe help guys like Jackson Dart in that locker room and help these young receivers as well, teach them how to deal with New York, some of the mistakes that he may have made and what not to do and who to trust and who not to trust. So in that regard, I do think it's a good move. I don't think it's going to be, a substantial move, for the roster, production-wise, but I do think it was a good move, maybe helping some of those young guys out. So this Giant team has a lot to prove. In that tough division, the Cowboys have gotten better. Obviously, the Eagles are the Eagles, and Washington has, made some strides. So it's going to be interesting to see how this team, fares in 2026.
Yeah, I'm actually excited for this team for the first time in a couple of years. To be honest with you, I love the fact that they brought in Harbaugh. I think it's what they've been missing for a long time. A head coach of this caliber. I feel like they've kind of danced around with not going in a direction like this. They've kind of just new head coach after new head coach, and it just hasn't seemed to work out. So getting a veteran presence like him and a guy who's been around the block, been there, won, has coached some amazing talent in Baltimore for a very long time and has dealt with a lot of personalities, I think is a perfect fit for a team like the Giants, especially with them now on the obviously upside of this whole reset that they've been dealing with for the last roughly decade. So hopefully, there's a new era in Giants football and we can get back to some winning ways, which Harbaugh at the helm, I think, is, the step in the right direction. As far as some of the guys that came over, obviously from Baltimore, you knew that was going to happen. I mean, a head coach of his caliber, wherever he's going to go, there are going to be players that do believe in him and trust and respect him in so much of a way that they're going to say, you know what, I'm going to follow this guy throughout his career. I'm going to follow his next move if possible. That's, obviously partly why Isaiah Likely was brought in. Obviously Harbaugh had a lot of say in that move as well. He knows him. He knows what he's capable of. And I think he's going to be a perfect safety net for Jackson Dart. Outside of that, we're coming off a Malik Neighbors injury. We don't know how he's going to be right away. Looking at it from the naked eye, from the few videos I've seen, he does look a little slow. It seems his recovery is, maybe not like Adrian Peterson-esque where, he tore his ACL and had surgery and was back in 8 months. He's not a physical freak of that nature. Maybe he's on the other side of that where it's taking him a little longer. And you know what? From what it looks like, I think he's being very careful, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I have no beef. As far as Odell being brought in, another veteran, Juju Smith-Schuster in that wide receiver room, that those are going to be two key veterans that are going to be able to help some of these younger wide receivers that they've drafted, and a guy like Neighbors, who's on his way up. I think first lesson for Odell, he takes this wide receiver group and walks over to the kicking net. Guys, this is the kicking net. This is what our kicker uses to practice field goals. We don't use it as a punching bag, and we don't ask it to marry us. I think that's the first lesson he should probably do. Trying to be a little funny here, but obviously they're going to get Cam back, Scatterboo as well. I mean, that kid, you guys have seen the memes all over the place. They are hysterical, funnier than the next with some of the things that get put out with this guy. I mean, talk about somebody you want to go to war with. It's absolutely a guy like him. I mean, he seems like he'll go head first into a brick wall and get up after the fact. So, to have a guy like that in your backfield, I think is huge. Obviously we hope that he stays healthy. And, their defense obviously got a lot better. And there's also the question of, what they're going to do. There's been a lot of trade rumors surrounding a guy like Thibodeau. I hope they hang on to a guy like him. I think his, the versatility that he brings, that he can play multiple positions. He can go back from linebacker to lineman. They have a lot of that. I think that could bring similar to what, like that second Super Bowl run, even the first one, they had guys like Tuck and OC and Strahan. I'm not saying these guys are that caliber, but the fact that they had so many of those guys, they were able to move off the ball like that, I think is going to be huge. So I love having that versatility, and I'm glad they didn't make a move to get rid of him. Realistically and overall, I think Dart's going to take the next step. He showed a lot last year, yeah, like I said, overall, I'm very excited. I actually am very excited. I'm looking forward to opening day in the NFL, and I haven't had that feeling in a while. Being a Giants fan, obviously I watch football regardless, but it's different when your team is actually playing well or projected to be pretty decent and on the upwards. So it's a bright spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, getting Artville Reese as the 5th overall pick, I think that was a steal because now he's added with guys like Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, who I think is only going to make a better of a jump this year. Tremont as well. Yeah, bro, I'm super excited to see how that Giants defense. I mean, their secondary is a little bit iffy, but bro, that D-line is going to get to players like crazy. I think that a lot of O-lines are going to be struggling with him. I will say, one thing I'll say about the Giants, can Dart just protect himself a little bit better? That's the only question I have, because if he's able to slide a little bit more efficiently, I think that they're bound to have a big leap. How big of a leap? We'll talk about it in a second. But I am very hopeful for the first time in quite some time to see the Giants, make a very big stride. I know there's been conversations about Harbaugh and, is the locker room, all coming together? Is it not? We'll see how that plays out throughout the year, but it better, because this guy is a winning head coach, and adding him to this team right here is only going to implement its success more quicker than not, in my opinion. So I'm very excited to see what the Giants got in store this year. And yeah, I think it's going to be a super fun year, a very fun, I mean, I don't want to give a little preview, but maybe a potential wild card team. I don't know if we're going to go that far, but it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun.
I can see that. I mean, if they could win the games they're supposed to win, and they don't drop the ball against teams that are a little bit under them, then I think they have a legitimate shot. I think if they go 8-9, they maybe could sneak in. They're gonna need to find a way to get 8 to 10 wins somehow in order to get a playoff spot. So the question really would be, where are they going to get those extra wins from? Because obviously there's probably a lot of people that don't have them winning 9 to 10 games this year. So and I'm sure we'll get into that very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cam Scatterbo, I got to say, he's one of my favorite players to watch. This guy, I mean, he's a machine. He's a tank, a freak of nature. But this guy is also like one concussion away from like drooling on himself, if I could be 100% honest with you. I mean, this guy already said he doesn't believe in CTE. So what does that have to say?
Yeah, that I heard. That was, and that's crazy because, I mean, there's players that literally donate their brains, and it's been proven that they had it. So I mean, like
that was a bad not a good look. But I like him as a player.
He may have it already. For him saying that, he actually may have CTE already. To be honest,
potentially, I did see a clip of him coming out. I think it was during.
He's like, yep, he's good.
I think it was during like No, it was during a Fanatics Fest. He did a backflip doing a WWE entrance.
He almost broke his face. Remember?
Keep in mind, this guy's coming from a broken ankle, guys. Just keep that in mind.
I know.
If Rob Gronkowski could be a running back, he's Cam Scatterbo.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
But look, there's obviously a lot of promise with this team, and I think that is a perfect segue to our over-under win total presented by BetMGM right here. And the line is set at 7.5 for the New York Giants. Very interesting. And they're actually favored to go under this line. We'll throw it to JV. I'll go second, and then we'll let Mike finish it off. Obviously, since this is his team right here.
This is a tough one. I'm actually going under. I don't see the Giants getting 8 wins. I just don't. I'm going to go under, and I will say that they get 7. I do think that they'll get 7 wins. They'll fall just short. I just don't think that they get 8+. I don't see. I think the Cowboys got better. Like I said, the Eagles are the Eagles, and Washington always plays them tough. So that to me is going to be a key, how they fare in their division, and obviously playing other opponents throughout the year. So we'll see what happens, but I'm going to say that the Giants go 7-10 this year in the NFC East.
Like, damn, bro, this is a perfect line. I'll tell you what, because I was just looking at the schedule just from the naked eye, and it's like, I gave them a decent amount of games, but I don't know if I could go to that 8 range just yet. I think I'm going to agree with JV right here. I'm going just under, and I'm going to go 7 wins for the New York Giants, but damn, I really want to give them 8. I really do. And maybe they could steal one, because I'm looking at the schedule right now. Some winnable games, like, could they sweep Washington? I mean, that's going to be an interesting one right there. They do have the Colts here, the Jag. Like, it's going to be super interesting. I'll put them at 7, though, just to be a little bit more safe about it. But I'm not that confident in my pick when it comes to 7 wins and going the under.
All right, I'm gonna go against the both of you. I'm gonna let bias be a thing. I'm gonna go against you. I'm gonna take the over. I'm looking at their schedule as right now, and just kind of trying to go through it quickly and what I could see them potentially stealing wins in X, Y, and Z. Look, to be honest with you, the first couple of weeks, their first half of their schedule before the bye week is very weak. Honestly, the most notable team that they really play is the Rams in week 2, and that's obviously, the Rams are the Rams. Outside of that, you can make an argument for all those games before week 8 that they are very winnable games for them. They got the Cowboys in week 1, then they got Tennessee. You're talking about Arizona, the Commanders, the Saints, and the Texans before they reach the bye week. So you're talking about a very weak schedule, in my opinion, leading into the first bye week. So I think that's huge. And then they come off the bye week, and the first team they see is the Eagles. Listen, I could see a potential where they maybe steal a game from Philly. Maybe they figure out the secret sauce into stopping Jalen Hurts and the tush push. Hopefully, maybe they could figure that out. I think their schedule gets a little stronger, obviously, in the second half. They're playing some teams that are, they got the Seahawks at one point. Now, maybe they're not the same team, whatever the case is there. But they're coming off of the Super Bowl. So we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, they're going to see the Eagles twice in the second half. They're going to see the Cowboys again. They're going to play some more competitive talent going down the stretch. So I feel like they're going to start off really hot. I think they're going to look really good because of the level of competition they're going to have. And I think that's going to maybe carry them for the rest of the season when they get into the latter part of their schedule where it does get a little tough. But I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna say they're gonna win 9 games.
Look, I don't mind it. 9 games could be potentially to get them into the wild card. I think that would actually be a very good season for John Harbaugh right there in the New York Giants. The one game I'm looking at that I see 50-50 that was like, bro, I mean, it could go either way. Is that game against the Saints? I think the Saints, that game's gonna be fire. That's gonna be
Especially
a fire
what
game.
we saw last year with that matchup, because that matchup was wild. That was a crazy game.
It was a great game. So
And especially how the Saints played down the stretch too. They played very well down the stretch last year.
the Saints were, I think, in those last few games, I think they were 5-1 or 6-1, I believe, something like that. But that's going to be a pivotal game for me to think if they could get to that 8-game win range. But I think this is going to be a fun team that's going to make the jump. Could they be one of those 4 teams that sneak into the NFC wild card? I mean, the 3 teams, should I say? I mean, I don't see why not. They have a lot of playing with house money type vibes to them right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's true.
I think the most dangerous thing in any sport is a team that's playing with something to prove. And, I think there's a few guys, in this locker room that are going to have that edge on them in a positive way. I think OBJ coming back, especially him being a Giant again, it's something he's always wanted to do since he left. I feel like he's got a little something to prove. You got a couple of veterans in there that feel like they have something to prove. And I feel like if there's anybody that's going to get the most out of these players, it's going to be John Harbaugh. And I think he's the perfect fit for this team. I think Jackson Dart is going to take that next step forward. As long as obviously health is on the side of the Giants, I don't see why they can't make noise. Like, why not them? Why not us? I think we said on a phone call the other day off air, there's a switch of 4 teams that have made the playoffs the year before that don't make it, and 4 new teams that get slotted in. So why can't the Giants be one of those 4 teams? Why not? Some of these teams take leap forwards earlier than expected. So go for it.
Yo, that's exactly what I honestly think it's either, because the NFC East is a very interesting division, and we'll talk about our predictions when it comes to the NFC and the AFC and everything later on, but it's an open division, bro. I think that's the best way to put it this year. No more AJ Brown. I mean, the Eagles, this is going to be Jalen Hurts' first real year without a true wide receiver one. I mean, Devontae Smith, I am big on him, but that's going to be interesting. What is Washington going to look? Is Jaden Daniels going to, live up to it at the end of the day? I mean, Dallas, to me, I don't know. I'm very infatuated by Dallas this year, and we'll talk about them eventually, but I don't know.
I actually think that I don't see the Giants actually beating Dallas once this year. I think Dallas is just too strong, especially against the Giants. They just seem to have their number. And I think this year, again, they're going to go 0-2 against them. And it's really what they could do against the Eagles, and Washington. What are they going to be able to do? Can they split? Can they maybe sweep Washington like Mike was saying? I just don't see how they're going to be able to beat Dallas. And I don't see how, they're going to match up with Philly. Philly usually plays in really tough as well. So we'll see what happens. I just think right now that them getting over 7, it's just they're just maybe 1 or 2 years short from doing that, just in my opinion.
I think that's fair. I could see this either way. I think it's fair. So I'm going to ask everybody else, if you guys are still watching, we very much appreciate it. We see the views, we see the comments, we see your support. We really do appreciate it. The subscriptions have gone up. So we see that, and we want, just want to acknowledge it. I say this all the time, and I feel like I'm becoming like a broken record. It really is what motivates us to keep this channel going every day. The fact that we do see growth, and so we do appreciate everything that we get from you guys. So we would love, especially my Giants fans out there, light up the comments. Let us know what you think about this team. Am I being a little overzealous and saying that the Giants are going to win 9 games, or or Ben and Joe not seeing what I'm seeing? Is my bias kicking in? I don't know, guys. Let me know. Throw it in the comments. Until the next episode, we much appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.